Good morning. Thanks for joining me. I'm Frank Kaufmann. I've put this piece together called Get Out There First. This is probably the most overtly and plainly religious podcast I've done in all of the ones I've done. Every single one surely has had spiritual and religious dimensions to it, without question. But usually I translate spiritual life into the more common and mundane manifestations or applications of them. But this particular podcast is straight up spiritual and religious per se. But I think it is a worthwhile consideration for us, and I think it can apply to people who have, for whatever reason, diminished or made less religious practice in their life. But I think this is it's especially valuable for people who are on committed paths of spiritual growth. But anyway, here we go. As I said already, I've named this one Get Out There First, and it is an explicit teaching on prayer. It explains clearly an extremely important point, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people who pray. There's billions, there's a billion Christians, there's a billion Muslims, there's people praying all the time. There's people expressing their concerns to the transcendent center of the point of greatest care, greatest power, all-knowing, all-powerful, the divine in however that individual or that force is conceived. And prayer is very common in the human activity, very common. And but here I stumbled across a passage from one of my teachers who struck on something that I think is very profound and very helpful. It reads like this: in order to fulfill bigger things, you need an adventurous mind and be willing to take risks. Then God will tell you not to worry, that He is right behind you. If you throw yourself into overcoming stone walls and persecution in front of you, God will take up your battle, for He knows who is just and who is unjust. But first God will watch, giving you a chance to knock out your opposition and those who come against you with your own capability. This is the same as a father or mother would do if you come running to God to ask for help even before you confront your opponent or your enemy or your opposition. He, God, parent, she, will feel ashamed to hear that and hear you and send you back out again. After you go first, you can ask God to come help you with anything you lack. Then God will say, "Go ahead, I'm right behind you." That's the whole reading. And I don't know if it's obvious. I think most people are praying from a position of helplessness or asking God for in all of God's power and authority and capacity to help their situation or rescue them from difficulty or so on and so forth. But this very tiny flip in which the speaker here points out the smallest thing and does a beautiful job of creating a metaphor of a parent watching a kid afraid to go out and stand for themselves and come running for help before ever stepping out to try themselves. And so I love that idea in which God, and the teacher says, God, like any parent, will be ashamed to hear you and send you back out again. It's such a clear picture. And it's so resonant with the truth and the fact of the matter. What parent, honestly, would just go running out into the schoolyard and tower above some little 8-year-old kid and just bully them from their power as an adult? Rather the kid tries to solve the problem first, and then the parent is right behind, whichever way it turns out. And I think that this basic guideline or framework to how we approach prayer can change our lives fundamentally. He says God would be ashamed to hear you and send you back out. And he says, I didn't read it earlier, he says, create a good problem. Be a heavenly troublemaker. Get out there and do something. After that, God will help you with anything you lack. God knows we lack. We lack everything. If we want to take on Pepsi Cola for poisoning our kids, if we wanted to take on Facebook for corrupting its power, if we, get out there first. Don't. What is God going to do? Sitting around in your house or sitting around on your knees, kind of begging for help to overcome something that troubles us? Get out there first, and with that, God will say, "Go ahead, I'm right behind you." And the people who live in this way are the ones who can testify to the power of God and the power of faith. Because it's only when you're hanging by a thread, out of the results of your own courage and valor, that we discover again and again the compassion and care and support of God in the heavenly spiritual world. And these are the people who can testify to the power of prayer, the power of faith, and the power of the Infinite One, the Almighty, the All-Loving One. All right, very short, but I think an important small point and a small flip, but a big change, especially if you're a person of prayer. But however you organize your life, that courageous first step is an obvious thing, especially when painted in that kind of schoolyard metaphor. All right, thanks a lot for listening. Look forward to be with you again soon.